Good afternoon for our first full day of Making Waves, our survey of new Romanian cinema. I'm Robert Kohler, the new program director of year-round programming here at the Film Center in the Walter Reed. And I want to welcome you all to what is, in fact, the second screening of our opening night film, Tudor Giurgiu's of Snails and Men. If you had heard about last night's screening, we had a rousing reception for the film, and so we're very pleased to have another chance to show you the film again this afternoon. Now I want to just introduce briefly Director Tudor Giurgiu. We will have a Q&A right immediately after the screening.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks for being here. The film, which you'll see, I won't say too much about it. It's just based on a real story happened in Romania in 2002. The scriptwriter of the film, who lives in France, thought it's a great idea to make a film, so he wrote it. We decided together to change a bit the setting of the action and to put it in 1992, right after the fall of communism in Romania. So maybe we'll talk more after the screening why and what and so on. I would like just to say that the actors, the main leads, Andi, Vasluianu and Bîrlădeanu are here as well. So I'll be happy to join me as well at the Q&A. So have a great screening and see you after.
We'll see you afterwards, and please turn off all mobile devices. Thanks. Well, thanks very much for staying, and want to welcome up to the stage Director Tudor Giurgiu and two of the stars of the film, Andi Vasluianu and Bîrlădeanu. Well, Tudor, it's probably natural to first consider your interaction with the Full Monty as either an influence or as an echo in the back of your mind when conceiving of this film. And this is often the case with filmmakers, there's a prior big film or iconic film that is in the background of what is a fresh idea for film. How much of that was in the background, or did you try to tamp it down as much as possible not to play the Full Monty?
I mean, it was somehow obvious after everybody was reading the script, especially people from Europe, like co-financiers and so on. They were all telling, oh, this is the Balkan Full Monty or the Romanian Full Monty. And of course, there are so many influences or similarities more or less. And what I tried is not to look again at Full Monty, but it was one single moment when I thought initially that I would use some footage, some archive footage, which I discovered in our National Archive about this car factory in the 70s or in the 60s. Like, it was such a great success story, and everybody was sure this car factory would be glorious and the cars would travel all over the world, will export. So I found this footage and I thought this would be great for the opening credits. And then I kind of remembered the opening credits of Full Monty, which they were again playing with the same type of irony, looking to a nice footage, archive footage about the destiny of this mining town from England. And it was the same, idea of glorious future, but in fact the town was in deep problems of like poverty and so on and so on. So after realizing this, I decided then to look for another way to have a context of the film, have a background, and that's how I came up to this Michael Jackson story, which for my generation was kind of like the moment of the 90s when it was, I think, the first East European country which Jackson visited. And for me, I mean, I was a young guy in Bucharest, and it was like big thing, like Messiah would come to Earth, like really, it was you would not believe it was such a big thing, and so somehow that's how I arrived there. But yeah, I think Full Monty is otherwise a great film.
During the conception of the film, how much was there a sense of pulling from the headlines, the fact that this is based on actual events? And to what degree was it wildly fictionalized? There's so many clear comedic and fictional strands running through this with even larger than life characters. But nevertheless, it's grounded in actual events. And if you could describe a little bit about what the actual events were and then how you expanded out into high relief.
Yeah, I mean, as said in 2002, it really happened, this thing, like a union leader came up with this idea, but everybody laughed, nobody believed in this. But the piece of news was kind of a crossing, all over media, Romania International. A business magazine in US declared it by the end of the 2002 the 7th most dumbest business idea in the world. And it was big, but of course nothing happened. So the scriptwriter, Ionuț, a friend of mine, came up with this idea like, okay, but why would not be possible that 1,000 people would really go to Bucharest to save the factory? So this was the starting point of the script. He asked this question to himself, and he started to write. And since that moment, it was a lot of fiction. I mean, somehow everything is fictionalized. I think we just used some pieces of news, like TV reports, where the real union leader spoke, saying that, this is a physiological act, this is something normal, so we should not be really ashamed about it. So I try to use piece of this in what Andi was saying during that press meeting with journalists and so on. But otherwise, everything is fiction. And it's funny that one of the major problems which we had during the promotion of the film was that we were thinking of going into the real town, where actually we didn't shoot anything because there is no more factory there. Everything is sold and destroyed. So we met also the real guy who inspired the story, which is not as charismatic as Andi is. He's totally different, and he still has this idea that we did something, a film. He did not see it yet, but he thinks that we just made fun of his idea and the story and so on and so on. But yeah, it was interesting to play a bit with this real life cases, because sometimes people look to this, especially because it's such a difficult topic to them, and it was a city built around this factory. It was a big drama for these people when they lost everything. So, when they see a fiction, a feature based on this story, I think it's very difficult to look with, as we look with the perspective, with the distance, and they are all thinking like, they watch a documentary or they watch, this is the real thing, and we say, guys, it's not the real story, but it's difficult because you talk about human destinies and their tragedy.
Andy, what did you go about building the role, creating the role? Because in some ways, although it's based on an actual guy, it seemed like you used also, you and Tudor used a lot of latitude for creating a truly larger-than-life, heroic, comic, everyman kind of figure.
So I finished the university before. This was the first work, and after that I go to Giurgiu, to Tudor, and talk with him about everything. And he showed me the material with the real guy. And it wasn't a method acting, I don't know. I just work, I saw the script and I look in the script all. And we talk each other, and that was it, I don't know. And the imagination, a lot of imagination.
And for both you and Monica, the relationships and the various relationships in the film work on multiple levels. Each character, each major character has sort of multiple relationships. You with the workers, or with lovers and et cetera. It almost has the dimensions of a novel about it. I was thinking, watching it last night, and I was wondering if both of you talked about how, your roles, interacted in the larger way with all the other characters in the ensemble way it has.
I loved very much about Manuela that she has a very large variety of attitudes towards the people she interacts with. I mean, obviously, she has a relationship, a clandestine affair with Andi's character, with the Giurgiu, but at the same time, it's very unusual because she's not the typical mistress that is aiming to breaking this marriage. Actually, she obviously has some feelings, and it was very touching for me to see that actually she has a form of loyalty towards his character because she tips him towards the end. But at the same time, she tried to keep kind of a safe distance between them for him also, in order to protect his family. And then she has this very dominant relationship with the mother, and then she becomes this little girl when and very flattered and flustered constantly when the French guy, whom I mean she sees as just people from a different planet, and they are coming to save her, and of course the relationship with her boss, that is again very it's a form of abuse that she allows. So that really gave her a very complex environment where she develops as a character. I love that very much about her constantly rephrasing her, just recalculating her entire life constantly. When that doesn't happen, what do I do now? I'm going to go with that. Oh, the visa didn't come through. What do I do now? Oh, I'm going to go with reassessing her options constantly. Is a very dynamic woman, and that's something that I absolutely loved about her. And, I'm a girl from a small town, so in Romania, and I know the small town mentality and how that works, and the pressure of having to have a job or a professional status in order to be respected if you're not already married by 30 and have a status as a wife and a mother. So it was very interesting. I loved her very much. I got so attached to her. I was writing to Tudor on Facebook 3 months later, or 4 months later, that I just can't let her go. I just loved her so much. She's so chipped and broken and a little opportunistic, and I loved everything that is all her fault.
Yeah, that beautifully describes all her contradictions and dimensions. And Tudor, we were talking out in the lobby about this universal problem issue that the directors have to solve about where to put the camera. And there are lots of choices lots of options that you have in many of these scenes. I think of the mass scene when the workers are all in their Sunday best, going on the train to the clinic and expecting their great day, and then it turns into a riot. And there's so many ways you could shoot that. And you were talking about the challenge of directing, of finding the place to put the camera, the right place. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we're just talking about this thing which is fascinating for me, and we can talk for days, and no time for now to elaborate. But I think that's one of the most fascinating things. Like, you have to, especially talking about this type of cinema, it's a very narrative film. There is a lot of actions, and it's always this moments. It's not a chamber drama. It's something very fluid, and it was also, I think, there were moments where I was thinking, how should I really encapsulate the energy, the tension, the dramatic tension, and I don't know if I did my best choices, but I mean, there were some moments, and for me, there is one scene which was really, or let's say two scenes which were relevant. It's the scene where Andi was alone at the clinic, and like before donating the sperm, and we were rehearsing a lot, and it was so funny that I think the prop department, the art department, brought that damn curtain, which was, you know, not actually covering the whole, it was Andy's idea, you know, to play with this while we were rehearsing, and that scene, I think, is saying, you know, so much without, you know, moving the camera. Just, you know, you keep the camera static, and it's just him and his shyness, like he the big macho, and you know, it's facing this shyness, and that's why I wanted, you know, very deliberately that the next shot would be him facing the camera. It's, I think, the first time in the whole film where he's actually looking to the camera, because it's his, you know, he's shy, and it's all his life and future is in that little can. And then the second moment, maybe, which was, I think, for me very, very difficult in terms of decisions, was another scene which I think I loved the most in the film, the scene in the canteen with him and the boss of the factory, which I think it says a lot about, I think, what has happened in a way in Romania and what people like him or the working class experienced in the 90s. And we were like having this big dilemma. First of all, like, you know, when you have a conversation of two people standing, like sitting at a table, it's one thing. When another character is standing, it has already like a power position to the other one. So we were like, I remember we were rehearsing a lot this scene, and we were talking even about how they address one to each other. And I really loved how it ended, because I think I think we didn't want to push too much the directorial choice in terms of angles, but let the performances going. And I think there was a particular scene where both Andy and especially the manager Dorel was just great.
Why especially? It's a joke.
Well, let's open it to questions from the audience. Here, yes.
What a magnificent film. Brings back faith in the life and cinema as well. I wanted to ask you about those two French actors. One of them is very well known in French cinema. I used to see him, the other guy. How did you get them? Did you have them in mind, or was it chance?
No,
I'll repeat the question for those who didn't hear it. The question was regarding the two French actors who play the industrialist trying to take over the factory, and how they were selected and cast.
yeah, I didn't have them in mind at all. I was talking with my French co-producer, and I was about to start a casting process in France, but he came up with this idea, like, why don't we use Jean-François Stevenin and his son, Robinson, because they never played on a screen together. It was the very first film where they played father and son, both in life, and also it happened to be the characters. And Jean-François, is, as you said, is is great, really amazing actors with such a great track history in the French cinema. He also directed a couple of films. One was, I think, really great film. I think it was Mishka, if I remember. Yeah, Mishka. And Robinson is, I think, an up-and-coming actor, very good, very talented, very gifted, very chameleonic. And it was great just to work together. But it was like an idea, you know, of a producer. We just met, had a lunch in Paris, and it was they loved the script. It was a click for all of us, so that's how we got together.
Yes.
I just want to ask how many days it took to shoot the whole film?
The question was how many days we're shooting?
I think overall we had 28 shooting days, or maybe 29, something like this. It was very, very difficult because most of the film was shot in location, not any day in studio, so we had to move quite a lot. Even like we had 2 locations or 3 in a day, so it was pretty difficult or hectic.
Different cities too.
Yeah, different cities, and no time to really you know, just to stay a bit and think, and you know, just always we were in a rush.
Was it more difficult than running a film festival, which you do, the Transylvania Film Festival?
It's total different experience. I think it's film. I mean, doing a film is such a intimate thing, an intimate process, and yeah, you cannot compare. I think the travel, the work of a director with anything else. It's very unique.
And it was largely in the Czech Republic. Was there filming in the Czech Republic? That was some of the locations?
No.
Or no, there wasn't.
No, just Romania.
Right. Okay.
The other movie. No.
Yes, more.
The next one.
Okay, the next film. Yes.
I'm curious if you could sort of go through the rationale of why you moved the setting of the movie from 2002 to 1992 and how that sort of added to the narrative.
So why 92 and not 2002? The reason was, in my opinion, very simple, because in 92 it was still, the people were very naive in the country. It was a sense of building everything. It was total chaos. It was nothing, the democracy was very fragile, and everybody was, you know, trying things, but, you know, trying to get money from somewhere, from here, from there. But it was just chaos everywhere. And for me, it was more believable that such kind of story with 1,000 people actually believing in this big dream would happen in 1992. While in 2002, things were, 10 years later, Romanians, I think, were more practicing more the, you know, democracy. Things were more stable in the country. In 92, it was, I mean, a period which I loved. I mean, we were students and we were making fun with Andi that during Michael Jackson concert, it was my first paid job in the industry. I was holding the cables for an American cameraman, so I got like $50 per day, and Andi was selling newspapers, right? Yeah, like across the street, the stadium where it was a big performance. So, you know, it was, I think, the perfect climate for such a story to take place. And the people, again, were a combination of, they were unable to administrate and to cope with their freedom. They were naive. They were like, yeah.
But nobody had no clue what this means. I mean, to have the option of choosing, it was a very throwing everybody off balance, because the future was pre-designed by the Communist Party before. So all of a sudden you have to be entrepreneurial and not knowing how. And I think, you know, bottom line, in 92, you have a perfect excuse to have this idea, but in 2002, after the internet, you know, is available to, you know, it's kind of, so I think it's absolutely appropriate that this would happen then.
Yes.
In the honor of the actual guy who had the idea in 2002.
Yes.
I really like the film. Would you consider doing an actual documentary about the subject? Are you interested in documentaries at all? I think it's a really interesting story that I'd love to see.
I do have an interest for documentary, but I think the topic is more, I think, appropriate for doing a kind of a TV report, investigative documentary, but especially for television. And one very good friend of mine did it already for the main commercial TV channel in Romania, and I gave him the story, saying that, you know, would be good to make an investigation and to do it parallel with the film's release in Romania. And they discovered great things. I mean, it was a great experience, great but very sad experience watching that report, because I've seen the whole disaster, you know, actually why happened, who was guilty, and you could see that most of these big industrial factories, they were all disappearing after 1990, and they were chopped in pieces, sold for nothing, or initially they were sold for nothing, but then the people who got the factory, they were deciding to sell the iron, and they made millions. So actually they bought all these big giants for nothing, and then when they were reselling the pieces, they dismantled in pieces, they made fortunes. And it was kind of, and it was of course a business administrated and run by former people working in Securitate, in the Romania secret police, because they were the ones who had the power in the 90s. They were the people who were informed. They had all the networks. So it was kind of a general's game in 91, 92 in Romania.
Yes.
Congratulations to you and the cast for the wonderful film. I enjoyed it. As a Romanian, one thing that came to mind watching this film, the events that happened in the early 90s and the political climate, some of the scenes, especially when people gathered in the plaza and they went to Bucharest with the train, reminded me of the miners' strike in the 90s and how they were received in Bucharest and chaos engulfed. And then also the last imagery in front of Casa Poporului, was that a conscious decision to tie the political events as well?
The answer is yes, but I think these type of feelings, and belongs to you, belongs to me, to some people who've experienced that. But I think for all the rest of the people in the world, they are just, it's not clicking to them, which for me was, I think, there was a decision, of course, to choose that particular location because they were all sitting on the grass on that park, and you see in the background this huge giant, which is like one of the biggest buildings in the world. I think it's number 2 after Pentagon. It's a huge building conceived by Ceausescu, but I didn't want to push it in the foreground. I think there were things which your observation is great, and it's some things which I really want, but I didn't want to make it too much of too present in the film, because I thought, films, if I would push more this direction, people would not understand, or the film would be, I think, too local.
Yes, all the way in the back.
The scene about the visa, what did she want to get that, was she planning to get that visa before she knew about the factory closing? I just didn't understand. I think that's what happened, that she was denied a visa.
Yes, she was denied the visa. She wanted to emigrate in Spain because that was one of the biggest trends after, in the early 90s. People were going to work in Spain or in Germany, 2 waves of, I'm sorry? And in Italy too, yes, actually. So that was a very popular destination, let's say. So yes, she had the ambition of going somewhere, making a better future for herself, and
Before she even knew the plan of the closing.
yes, way before she knew the plan of the closing, but because you actually see there is when the news, when the boss announces, it's right at the beginning of the movie, and obviously she applied for the visa way before, weeks before, let's say, because she gets the response in the same day.
Yes.
I just want to ask the actors as well too, and the director, if possible, what was the most challenge? One of those would be, and then the other one, the most fun things on the set. I'd love to know from all of you.
Funding.
Challenge and fun.
Most challenge was when I tell the workers the plan. I will talk with them about the plan, how to go to the sperm bank and everything. That scene was very hard for me. I don't know why, because I didn't do it before. And,
Once in a lifetime.
yeah, and it was hard. Yes, and fun. I don't know. It was
We had big fun
a sad
on
movie.
set, yeah.
I don't remember now.
I think the fun part was after the shooting, because we were shooting
Yeah.
on location, remote, in a city near Bucharest, and each evening we have done. It was a shitty hotel with a shitty bar, but we were just having fun doing karaoke each night. So it was really great.
And also the sex scene. It was very fun.
I was almost getting offended here that it was no fun with my scene. Actually, the most challenging scene for me was actually when I had to slap him. I mean, the scene with the slapping, because that Tudor very wisely put it right
I want to
after
forget it was
sexy.
challenging for me too, but
And
I
it was,
forgot.
how do I go from that to full-on anger and slap this super funny, amusing, very dear friend of mine? It was very difficult. So actually in the break, we were not there when we were rehearsing, so we had to make up, some sort of issue between us and insulted each other a little bit so we can go in the scene with real anger. Otherwise.
For you, Tudor?
The whole film. No, I don't know. I think one of the most difficult scenes was the one which we shot in an apartment with right at the beginning of the film with the manager of the factory, the wife, the dog, and the old mama. She was an actress of 93-year-old, and we were in a tiny apartment. It was, I think, one of the hottest days in Bucharest. It was like 38 degrees in Celsius. It was horrible heat, and with the dog and with the grandmother and with it was just nightmare. And yeah.
The dog was trained to answer to the name Poofy, and everybody was calling him something else.
Yeah, no, it's.
Nobody could actually hear what's his real name, so the dog would not respond.
What other endings did you consider? I mean, at one point I was really drawn to George's character. He's a leader, he's a devoted father. Clearly he cheated on his wife, but then in the end he finds out that perhaps it wasn't his child. And part of me felt like maybe this is the opportunity for George and Manuela to get together. Is that a...
No, that's for the remake. That's for the sequel, sorry.
Yeah,
That's for the sequel.
let me just repeat that question for those who didn't hear it. Were there other endings that were considered, particularly around his questioning whether, in fact, he was the father of the child?
Yeah, so that's a possible thing for the sequel, as said. But initially, the script ended with a scene between Andi and the wife. And then by talking with our French co-producers, we were all thinking that, yeah, it is a character-driven story, that is this personal thing going on in the family, but we should not avoid to talk, and I think it's essential to talk a bit about the whole thing, like what has happened with the factory, what has happened with the city, with the people, what's going on with them. So that's why we added this last scene of the film. But what was interesting was the way how, and it was very difficult for us, the way how we did the end scene, how actually the George is telling to the wife that he knows that they have a child, but it's not his child. So we talked a lot, and we decided, like an easiest way to do it would be, that he would go back and, being very aggressive to her and do something really nasty and wrong. But I think the way how we did it, I liked it. I think it's subtle, and they were great, like the performance actually, I like it a lot, and I think they were...
Especially Andrea.
No, both of you. But yeah, here it was big dilemmas, like should we do more words or less words, or like, again, question of choices.
We have time for one more question. Sure. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the film, but how many people do you think went back to Romania after what is happening in Spain and in the rest of the world?
The question is if there's been a reversal, in essence, of workers and citizens back to Romania from countries like Spain, which have undergone their own economic downturns, in a sense.
It happened the same thing with the Polish that went to work in Ireland when Ireland was at its best, as we speak. And about 200,000 people that were working in the construction business went back to Poland, and things in Poland went better.
A comparable situation happened in Poland, where Polish workers exited Poland to Ireland and now have been returning back to Poland with Ireland's economic downturn.
I don't know too much of this thing, but I feel that it's not too much of a going back. I think people who are there work and they are happy and they have families, and I think it would be too difficult. You left once your home territory to go to another country, and then you to move back with family, with kids which are already, you know, let's say half Spanish, or then it's difficult.
At the beginning, though, this is what they were doing. They would go work for a couple of years and come back with some money and get a house and a decent car and have a better start in Romania. But then they integrated themselves the more they stayed. However, I know for a fact that there's a huge income from the immigration, you know, in Italy and Spain. They send money home all the time. So actually the country benefits a lot from the Romanian communities in these countries, the hot places, Italy and Spain.
Well, Tudor, Monica, and Andy, thanks so much for
so
great
much.
conversation.
We thank you.
Thanks.
And thanks so much for
Thank you.
coming. Thank you.